Hello everyone, welcome back and thank you for having more interest in our Game On with Praetorian. This device is going to be revolutionary, we think, for the gaming industry, for the able gaming industry. So what we're doing with this video compared to the previous one, where we showed you what was in the box with regards to the cables, etc., we're going to go into a little bit more detail about what's required, what's needed to be understood so that you can get going, and how simple it is to get going with the device itself. So we've got it hooked up in front of us, so I'm going to run through how we hook it up before we get into more detail. And those two USB cables that I told you came with the Game On, I've plugged it into the left hand and the right hand socket of the Xbox adaptive controller, and into the back of the Game On there, just to show that they are connected. Now, obviously you don't necessarily need to connect the Xbox adaptive controller. We recommend that you do though, just purely because that some games, doesn't matter what gaming device you use, do require some form of controller to be mixed in. So you can plug the Game On directly into your PC using this left hand USB, but you don't necessarily need to, and for sake of ease, if you've got an Xbox adaptive controller, we suggest you do that straight away. So that's plugged in. And then the Xbox adaptive controller, it has the USB-C to USB-A cable here, the red cable, going straight into the laptop. The laptop runs a few drivers, just like most of our products, but you don't need to physically do anything yourself, and then it's connected and it's available for use. So the next thing you want to do is obviously set up your grid sets and get going with regards to your grid sets, if you aren't using any switches and you're just using your iGaze device. So here we have Grid 3, and this is the grid set setup for Game On with Praetorian Technologies. There's a little bit more detail at the start, some hints and tips about how to use the grid sets, but you'll notice you've got three standard grid sets available with regards to the gaming controls: simple, intermediate or full. I'm going to show you the full one, but we actually recommend that you have a brief look at getting to know the simple and intermediate ones first. I'm going to show you the full one just to show you the full range of all the gaming controls that are available. But essentially, the key thing to note straight away is that with all things Smartbox, you can adapt and create your own grid sets. And what we'd like to offer, and obviously you would like you to get involved with this, is if you're using a specific grid set for a specific game or type of game, submit it to the community so that other gamers can get involved and use that same grid set. And hopefully if you're struggling for a grid set, you can see someone using one that's fantastic for you within that community as well. So understand, and hopefully you get that it's completely customizable as per your use. So I'll have a click straight onto the full one just to show you how deep it is, and you'll see straight away that you've got a lot of different functions there, and that is every different function and the use of function, including triggers, including double taps, including rapid fires, etc, etc, all the way through the whole of that grid set. So that's basically how it looks, how it fits together physically. So now I'm going to run through a couple of the different settings on the Game On so you can understand a little bit more about the functionality of how it sets up. Again, very simple, but I'm going to go through it now. So now we're going to go through the way that the Game On can be set up with regards to the different functionality you've got within the device. And the first thing we're going to go through is the buttons. Now, really simple thing to talk about straight away. You've got select and modify. Select and modify are basically, if you're familiar with any Praetorian Technologies devices before, normally there's a number of settings that you can cycle through, and then you can select the one you desire. So modify cycles through and selects the desired choice. But the two on the right are probably the most important. But before we go into those, one more thing to finally point out physically about the Game On, and that's the IR receiver at the front there. So regarding your iGaze device, much like our Environ Hub, this receiver needs to be pointing towards your iGaze device, or in the situation where the light can travel from your iGaze device to this point. So do be aware of that with regards to positioning your Game On when you get it set up. So back to the LCD screen now, and hopefully you can see with the light there that you have it saying Player 1, Profile 1 active across the LCD display. Now, as that's displayed as it is, it's worth pointing out what it means with Player 1 and Profile 1. So you'll notice on the screen here that we've got Player 1, Profile 1 active. Now, Player 1 is the deciding player that you've connected to your AAC device to make sure that they're corresponding as suggested before. But your profiles, you can have up to 6 different profiles built into the device so that you can simply have different setups with regards to the button usage. So now we're talking all the different settings within the different buttons. And your profile, to change your profile, it's as simple as when you're in the profile like now, press modify and select, and as you go through pressing select, you get a number of different options that you can change. So as you can see, I'm just cycling through the options now. I'm not making any changes to the options, just cycling through the options. You have rapid fire, slow speed, fast speed, joystick timing, D-pad time, etc. And there's a massive menu with all the different details in your instruction manual to really understand how this functions, how all this functionality works, and how it can be better used for your gaming experience. If you do want to change anything, and so perhaps you're in sticky time and you want to change the time settings, you press modify until you're ready to change it again, and that moves you on to the next one and sets that time in motion. If you are finished with messing around with the profile and you leave it for a few seconds, it disappears like that and you go back to active, and that means that profile is active. If you want to change to a different profile, it's as simple as going into a different profile, going into the settings. It may already be set up how you'd like it, so rather than adapting slow speed, just leave it there, and as the LCD goes away, it moves you onto active like that, and the profile is set up active to use on profile 2. So it really is as simple as that to set it up. Obviously within those menus there's a lot of different things you can change, and within the grid set there's a lot of different things you can change. So we do implore you to read through the instruction manual thoroughly and have a really good play. This is what this is about, playing the games, and understand what you need as a user to enable you to really enjoy the specific games and set up the profiles as you require. Hopefully that's really understood. There's so many different help guides available, but do get in touch at all if you've got any questions, and we'd be more than happy to help you any further.